Today, our mini-series takes us to Iowa, where one serial killer was so aware of his urges, he flagged down a police car and told them that he was feeling homicidal. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. If you'd like to support the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. Let's get started. Carroll Edward Cole was born in Iowa and was the second child of Laverne and Vesta Cole. His younger sister was born in 1939, and soon afterwards his family moved to California, where his father found work in a shipyard. Unfortunately, not long after that move, his father was sent to fight in World War II. It appears that while his father was away fighting in the war, his mother had several affairs, and oftentimes she would even take Carroll Edward Cole along with her, and she would threaten to beat him if he told his father. It appears that his mother was very emotionally abusive to Carroll. She would dress him up as a girl, and at school he was teased about his girl name, and no one would know that at the age of 8, he would commit his very first murder. At the age of 8, he would retaliate against one of his classmates, and he would do so by drowning him in a lake in Richmond, California. The death was ruled an accident by authorities until many years later, in an autobiography he wrote in prison, Carroll Edward Cole would confess. During a press interview, he would say, "I was primed, I had made the mental commitment, and I was going to get even with my mother, and things just built up and became an obsession." As a teen, he would commit several petty crimes and was frequently arrested for drunkenness and minor thefts. After high school, he did join the U.S. Army, but was given a bad conduct discharge in 1958 for stealing pistols. In 1960, he attacked two couples parked in cars on Lover's Lane. Soon afterwards, he called the police in Richmond, California, where he was living at the time, and told them that he was plagued by violent fantasies involving strangling women. He would be committed to the Napa State Hospital and was diagnosed as emotionally unstable, but was put into therapy groups where, quote, "I couldn't relate, and that just set a pattern where I wouldn't say anything." After 90 days, he was released, but drifted from place to place, and he worked as a carpenter or a warehouseman or even a trucker. By now, he is drinking heavily, and he was checking into 3 or 4 other mental health facilities until 1963. He would say, "I'm the person who slid through the cracks in the medical and psychiatric system." At the last hospital, his doctor would write, "He seems to be afraid of the female figure and cannot have intercourse with her first, but must kill her before he can do it." The thing is, that doctor would approve his release in April of 1963, and that's in spite of the fact that Carroll Edward Cole was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. As he was released, he would move to Dallas, Texas, where his brother Richard was living. There, he would meet and marry a stripper who had a drinking problem named Billy Whitworth. After only 2 years of marriage, Cole burned down a motel after convincing himself that his wife was having sex with men there, and he was soon arrested for arson. After his release from prison, he attempted to strangle an 11-year-old girl in Missouri. He was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. After he was released, he would end up in Nevada, where he attempted to strangle 2 more women, and once again, he would check himself into the mental health hospital. The doctors would note his murderous fantasies, but still elected not to detain him, and he was given a ticket back to San Diego. The fact that Carroll Edward Cole was continually released from these mental health hospitals, knowing that he was definitely a danger to society, really bothers me. It seemed that he was blatantly honest that he was having murderous fantasies and that he was going to snap, and yet they kept releasing him. His first murder as an adult was a woman named Essie L. Buck, who he had picked up in a San Diego tavern on May 7th, 1971. He would strangle her to death in his car, and then he'd drive around with her body in the trunk before eventually dumping it. 2 weeks later, he would kill an unidentified woman and bury her body in a wooded place. He would claim that they had proven themselves unfaithful to their husbands, and so it reminded him of his adulterous mother. In July of 1973, he would marry again, this time to a barmaid known as Diana Cole. She was also an alcoholic. The marriage was not a happy one. They argued often and fought frequently, and Carroll would just kind of disappear for days at a time. Turns out he would be committing murders while he was away. This includes one woman that he allegedly cannibalized. In September of 1979, he would strangle his wife to death. A suspicious neighbor called the police 8 days later, and although they found Diana's body wrapped in a blanket and stuffed in a closet, they decided that she died because of her heavy drinking, and her husband was released without charges. He would leave San Diego and move around again. And in 1979, he would meet Marie Cushman in a bar in Las Vegas. That same evening, while they were in a motel room, they had sex, and he killed her by strangulation. After that killing in Las Vegas, he would return to Dallas, where he would strangle 3 more women in November of 1980. Apparently, he was a suspect in the second of those killings and was also found on the scene of the third murder. He was arrested and held in custody, and then the police would come to the conclusion that the victim had probably died of natural causes, and soon he was ruled out as a suspect. The thing is, Carroll Edward Cole would confess. He claimed that he murdered at least 14 women over the previous 9 years, although he said there may have been more and he couldn't remember exactly because he was drunk when he committed the crimes. Cole was convicted in Texas of strangling 3 Dallas women in 1980. He was extradited to Nevada, where he was convicted of the 1977 slaying of Catherine Joan Blum and the 1979 strangulation of Marie Cushman of Las Vegas. He would get the death penalty. In some cases, he had kept their bodies for days at a time, and it appears that he would have sex with them. In Oklahoma City, he said he cut up one body into pieces and dumped them in trash cans throughout the city. He would say, "I think my crimes deserve the death penalty. Why prolong a despicable person's life who acted as judge, jury, and executioner to the people he murdered without regard to the victim? I know I'll kill again if I get out of prison. No woman is safe with me. I'm a danger to society." It appears his motive was revenge on his mother, and that's because she abused him and forced him to not tell his father about the affairs with other men. Cole would agree to let doctors examine his brain after his execution to let them see whether there was a physical reason for his murderous rages, which followed heavily drinking bouts in bars where he met many of his victims. He would go on to say, "I don't think I ever had any gratification. I was just left empty. In a way, a part of me wants people to understand without condoning what happened. But mostly I want something to be done about these serial kinds of crimes because they are so unnecessary. I wonder how many other people are out there doing the same thing and their crimes go undetected. Things are getting bad out there. People are going around killing people. And I just don't believe in that. I never did, even though I did that. With me, it was something that got completely out of hand." Carroll Edward Cole would die by lethal injection, and he would spend his final hours talking with guards, watching television, playing Monopoly, and chatting with both Catholic and Protestant chaplains. Carroll Edward Cole knew that he was a monster, and he knew that he needed help. And again, it seems like another person was failed by doctors. I mean, had he gotten the help he needed, had he been confined to a mental health institute, those women could still be alive today. He said that there needed to be some sort of telephone line that people like him could call to get help. I think the line about him talking about killing people and how he never liked that, although he did it, is quite disturbing. He mentioned that with him, it was something that got completely out of control. I'm not sure what that means. Did he mean that he killed too many people? Because it doesn't seem that he's remorseful. And the fact that he claims it was revenge against his mother, I don't understand how killing other women that are not his mother helped him get revenge. That didn't do anything to his mother. I mean, I guess if she was alive, it would embarrass her that her son's a serial killer and make her feel ashamed, but he just, all in all, took innocent women's lives. Our next killer was described as quiet, a methodical farmer, deer hunter, and ex-Marine. So what drove him to kill? Little is known about the early life of Gayno Gilbert Smith. Smith had been living in Denver, but due to problems, he came to Iowa to live with his stepmother. He would soon begin to have problems with her and moved to the home of his uncle Andrew. On May 27, 1962, it seems that Gayno Smith snapped. The Macbeth family lived in rural Iowa, about 4 miles north of Martinsburg, and at the time, Gayno Smith had been living with them. On that night, on May 27th, Gayno Smith, along with the Macbeth children, Amos, Anna, and Donna Jean, had driven to a dance for Donna Jean. Donna Jean had left her infant child home with her parents. Gayno Smith would remain at the dance a short time, but then disappeared until midnight. He would come back and pick up the children after the dance ended. Thunder, lightning, and heavy rain began as the 5 went to the truck stop for food, and when they returned home to their farmhouse, all of the lights were out. The children would find flashlights and make their way around the house to investigate. Unfortunately, Donna and Amos would find the murdered bodies of their parents in the garage where they had been dragged out to. They immediately tried to call for help, but discovered the phone lines had been cut. And then suddenly, Gayno Smith appeared before the 2 children with a flashlight and a gun in his hand. He would shoot Amos in the face, and then Donna. He would shoot another daughter, Patsy Lou, who was 15, in the shoulder. At this point, Amos was very badly wounded, but he began to plead for his life. Unfortunately, he was shot again. Patsy escaped to another room, where she found her older sister Anna already dead. She realized that she had to get out of that house. She would run outside, and as she's running, Gayno Smith would chase her. Eventually, they would wind up in a ditch in the countryside. She would crawl and crouch through the ditches to try and escape his flashlight, and this went on into the early morning hours. She would eventually reach a nearby farmhouse where she called her uncle, Furman Macbeth. By this point, Gayno had went into hiding, and he was found 4 days later in a barn. After his arrest, he would confess to the Macbeth murders, but he would also confess to the murder of his stepmother. At the time, Iowa still had capital punishment, so Smith would plead guilty to 6 counts of murder and leave his fate up to the judge. Prosecutors would go on to say that Smith had, quote, attempted to exterminate an entire family, and a psychiatric evaluation of Smith concluded that he was sane. After finding him guilty of 5 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder, he was sentenced to 6 life terms of hard labor. The infant was adopted by his uncle Furman, that was Andrew Macbeth's brother, and he raised him with his own 9 biological children. Harry, the child in the crib that night, would speak about the problems he faced growing up. He would say that all the way through school I was a bully because I wanted people to hurt as bad as I did. I hated everything and everybody. I'm sorry about that now. When I see those people today, I try to tell them that, but they just don't understand. Gayno Smith was interviewed in prison in 1974. He said that he accepted the fact that he would die in prison, but he was excited to get an education. At the time of that article, Smith was more than halfway to a college degree. He would say, I had 68 quarter hours in commercial cooking, and I completed 66 quarter hours in academic courses so far. He had a 3.75 GPA in the cooking program and a 3.3 GPA in academics. He said that he hoped to work with juvenile delinquents and help other young people with his newfound knowledge. At the time, he said that he also wanted to make changes to the prison system. He would say, I'd like to talk to them about this institution itself, about some of their laws and some of their rehabilitation programs. All prison systems are inhumane. You take a man from society who fails when he's in an abnormal situation and put him in one of these places. It's an abnormal situation here in itself. And then you say to the man, rehabilitate yourself. You don't send a person on the street to a mental hospital and say, make yourself well. There's nothing in here to change you. You can let prison society destroy you, or you can get some education and change yourself. Gayno would later die of heart problems on May 16, 2005. Harry would say, I'm glad he's dead. He said that he wished he'd been hanged and that he's glad he's dead. It was the best day of my life. I hope he burns in hell forever. The thing about this crime is it seems motiveless. I couldn't for the life of me find a reason for these killings. He methodically went and murdered his uncle, his aunt, brought the children home, and tried to murder them too. He killed his stepmother. He chased down a 15-year-old girl through the night as she's crawling through ditches during a thunderstorm, trying to get away from him. This man was a complete nightmare. Why did he kill his entire family? But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel and want to show your support, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. If there's a case you'd like me to cover, pop it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get to it. In the meantime, check out some other videos on my channel while you wait for the next upload, and I'll see you then.